Okay, call the Finance Audit Tendering and Administration Committee meeting Thursday, April 17th at 12:04. In order. On the items here, number one, call to order. Call to order. Any issue with that? Number two, declarations of conflict of interest. Are there any?
None.
Yeah, I may have one. If we go down this whole list, I'm still helping them out at kids sports, so that could be a conflict for me. So if you're going to talk about that, I'll step out of the room.
What's that, Councilor Mayor?
Under one of the grants is under kids sport, PEI.
Okay.
So.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
So noted. Okay. Thank you. Any discussion on those ones?
Always there, Mr. Chair. I do. Page 6. Clarification of the guidelines around depreciation of assets. So,
All right.
again, I've been going back to this because of the impact it's having on the financial budgetary process. I did discover that we do have a tangible capital asset policy that does outline some of the issues regarding amortization, right? And the ranges. And I'm not going to ask that we get into it today, but I'd like to just come back to it at the next meeting, because I'm looking at some of the ranges under inclusions, section 4, subsection 4.1, how we could actually, look at modifying some of those in how we amortize our depreciation for this year. And I'd just like to ask a question, again, Lane or Dan, you don't have to respond today. We can get at the next meeting, but when you look at depreciation, there's also appreciation, especially when you look at land. So I just want to find out, did we calculate that appreciation on land that we own as part of debt service? And could I also ask for the depreciation of what we depreciated this year or even last year? Does it equal what we'd be paying in principal payments? Or is it less? Is it less or is it more? And I really want to stay on this issue because, Mr. Chair, other communities are facing the same issue. They don't take the depreciation route. They look at the principal and the interest payments. What we've been doing right up until I think 22, 23. So if I can just get those questions that we, even a little bit of background so that for the next meeting, we can have a fulsome discussion. Again, concentrated, I'm focused on, acknowledging our debt, our long-term debt, and how we pay down that debt. But I think there's different ways of doing it. And as both, I know Mr. Pino, Mr. Jenkins know that when depreciation is great for private business because it's an expense. Public organizations like municipal governments and provincial, federal governments, it's a debt, and there's no tax advantage to us. So I just wanted to bring that up and have a wholesome discussion in the next at our next meeting, if that's possible, sir.
Thank you, Mayor Brown, on that. And Manager Lane, you're clear on what Mayor Brown is is wanting clarity on? And you good with that for next meeting? All right, thank you. Any further discussion on those minutes? Seeing none, thank you. All right, and then we're going to call it 6B, report on vehicle rentals. Albert Gash, you don't see him in the room. I see Riley Tweel here. I'm assuming Riley or Richard, was Richard McEwen, director, will speak to this. Go ahead, gentlemen, or whoever's going to speak to it.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so this report before the committee today is one that went through Public Works this week. It's to summarize the, I guess, public request for quotes that was issued by the department for the rental of vehicles to support our operations this summer and as we've done in the past number of years. The request for quotes got one submission from Enterprise Rent-A-Car, and the recommendation from the department is to award the submission based on the results provided. I guess to go into a little bit more detail, the reason for this rental that we have been doing over at least the last number of years is so that the increase in staffing and vehicle needs that we have in the summer in particular, where our staff is increased quite a bit. It's to provide them the vehicles they need to carry the services for the city, and to avoid having fleet vehicles owned by the city sitting all throughout the winter and not being used when the staffing numbers are lower. So typically these rental vehicles will be assigned to supervisors, so they're not being subjected to kind of a lot of the damage that tends to occur just in the work that we do. And the vehicles that supervisors typically have would be assigned to field staff and operational staff that are carrying out the work. So if there's any questions, do our best to answer for you.
Thank you, Riley, for that update. Is there any questions to Riley on
Yeah,
that?
Riley-
Councilor Bernard?
Riley, this is fairly normal. I think we've done this over the last few years.
Yep, this is somewhat routine for the department. As I mentioned, it's been fairly standard practice. Not sure the exact number of vehicles that we've done in the past, but certainly going out for a request for quotes for vehicle rental every summer has been common practice for us.
And this would come under the fleet manager, right? Yes or no?
The assignment of the vehicles, you mean, or?
Signing of vehicles, going out and getting the vehicles.
Yep, it would be under fleet management. Yeah.
Right. Right. Yeah, I'm okay with that. I'm just, yeah, I'm okay.
Thank you. Not seeing any further. Mayor Brown, do you have a question?
So we did discuss this, Riley, at Standing Committee for Public Works. I think last year the forecast on the budget for this was more than 90, was it not? I think it was 120. Am I right on that, guys? I'm just trying to find it there. And it's not just for Public Works. Public Works is responsible for vehicle rentals and purchases. They do the sort of the warehousing. So these could be going to, as I think Councilor Bernard said, Public Works, Parks and Recreation, correct?
Yeah, I guess it's possible. I'm not sure exactly on what departments they are going to. Typically, the vehicles that are rented would be going to supervisors and folks that aren't sort of, I guess, getting their hands dirty with the work, so that the vehicles that we're renting are not being subjected to as much damage and wear and tear as city-owned vehicles, just to avoid additional costs. And then the vehicles that are freed up as a result of that would be dispersed out to operational staff by the fleet manager to, to meet the needs of all departments that rely on us, so.
Yeah. So Riley, if I just go back to the 25-26 budget under Public Works, it's under, I think Albert referred to it, Mr. McCune, you were there. I think it was leased equipment and was budgeted for 81,230 for 24-25 budget year and actually came in at 126,230. So you're going below that, you're thinking that these will hold or we don't keep them longer, is that correct, Mr. McEwen?
Yes, so the budget is for 6 months, and last year there was an exceptional fall where crews stayed on and completed additional work, and as a result, the rental vehicles were kept a little bit longer than had been budgeted.
Okay. So can I just go back, Mr. Chair, to the fleet management? So Riley, if you go under finance, audit, and fiscal services, I brought this up with Mr. McEwen, and I think he was going to have maybe an answer today. Under expenses, this fleet management was 24-25, it was 129,000, but the forecast of the actual came in at 204,000. But again, we're budgeting 129. Can we differentiate between the rentals and the fleet management? And I know, Riley, I'm just going to ask, if you don't mind, ask Mr. McEwen.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Lane and I did talk about that, and we need to do a little bit of review further to fully understand what's being put into that account.
Yeah, because actually the account, instead of being 90,000, it's actually over 200,000. And we have a resolution here to buy, what, altogether 16 vehicles at 800 plus thousand. So, you know, if we're buying, great. So the last question is, and this is for the finance department, do we get hit with a depreciation on lease vehicles? I looked through our tangible capital asset policy. I couldn't get a clear answer. Maybe I missed it. Mr. Jenkins?
Thank you, Your Worship, through the chair. It depends on the nature of the lease. So if it's a capital lease, it's a long-term commitment to basically a way to finance ownership of that vehicle. Those would be the lease costs would be essentially depreciated, but because the depreciation is built into the lease cost, that basically replicates the. So depending on the nature of the lease, some of them get capitalized and depreciated, but in this particular instance, I think these are all short-term rentals, so they'd be less than a year, and those would just be expensed as rental costs, basically.
Yeah, so it's not a capital asset where it can be depreciated.
Right.
So if we were to lease our vehicles instead of buying them and just at the end of the lease, return them, get new leases, is that a capital asset depreciation or is that something that avoids being depreciated? Going back to the policy.
Sure. I'm not real fresh on my capital leases, but it does depend on the term of the lease and whether substantially all of the value in the asset is transferred to the city. So if the lease kind of covered the majority of the useful life of that asset, I think it gets capitalized. But as I say, it's not something that we've dealt with here and not something I've dealt with recently, so it's not fresh, but I think those are kind of the basic parameters.
Yeah, that's why I go back to this data that you provided from, I guess, combination with our department and MRSB. Depreciation on vehicles, light vehicles, we have the amortization at the max, 20%. That's for under depreciation. That's what's in this document here. So if we lease that and the lease didn't apply to it being a capital asset, we wouldn't have to cover that 20%, correct?
There would be a depreciation factor built into our lease payment. So
Into the payment, but
Yeah.
not into our books.
it would typically, I think, be spread more evenly over a 5-year period, if it was a 5-year lease, so you'd probably have a fixed lease rate over that 5 years. So you may end up with a depreciation factor that's a little more consistent over 5 years. Most depreciation policies on rolling stock or vehicles tend to be around 30% on a declining balance. So first year, 30%, kind of, you take the biggest hit as soon as you take it off the lot, and then it slows, the depreciation slows over time. But that's varies from one institution to the other, and depending on what the assets are being used for, how heavily they're being run and so on.
Okay, just last question, Mr. Chair. So again, I'm going to keep coming back to this because this depreciation issue is a red light for me, or a green light, or a yellow light, but light vehicles is 20%. So are you saying that amortization is 20% per year over 5 years? So it's a full depreciation of 100%?
I believe it's a 20% declining balance. So if we paid $100 for a truck, the first year we take half of 20%, so we take 10%.
Right.
At the end of that year, there'd be $90 left.
Right.
And then we would take 20% of that, so $18 in the second year.
Right.
And
So
then the
it's
year after that, we would
slightly
take 20% yes.
Okay.
The lower amount, yeah.
Thank you.
But just as the mayor's kind of digging there on the depreciation piece, I guess, and I've just been thinking as the discussion's been going on, I mean, but at the end of the day, in terms of our budgeting process, in terms of depreciation and where it shows up on assets, if it's, capital side or operating side, as it relates to vehicles, if it's even on the lease side impacts your budgeting process, because the lease got to be accounted for in the operating, right, in terms of cash flow. So it does, it lives, I guess, on one side or the other. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. It's leasing for many folks is really just a mechanism to finance a purchase as opposed to coming up with the cash right up front. Depending on the tax situation of the person that's purchasing or using the vehicle, it can be a slight disadvantage or advantage one way or the other, but it's kind of a tomato argument. But there are subtle differences between the two.
Thank you for that. Dan, you okay, Mayor Brown?
Yeah.
You good? Councilor Bernard?
Just a quick question for Riley or Richard. So normally this was kind of when the superintendents, when the crews come on, the superintendent's trucks it goes into for the workers. And then we rent vehicles for, or whatever, 3-4 months until the seasonal staff is laid off. The bottom 4 I can understand. I'm kind of wondering about the top 4, like a minivan with a roof rack, or an intermediate 4-door car. Like what's?
We just have pricing on those. We might not actually rent those vehicles, but just so that we have them if for some reason we did need to rent one for a month or a day. But typically we're not renting those vehicles. Tends to be the half-ton trucks.
Okay, so really you're just looking for a vehicle per superintendent?
Typically, yes.
Yes, yeah, okay.
Okay, we good on the vehicle rental doc? Moved, seconded by Councilor Bernard, moved by Mayor Brown. Thank you. So let's do, I guess, 6B, report water and sewer 2025 half-ton crew cab. Says Joshua here, but I think it'll be Richard.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So this is the water and sewer vehicles. There was a combined tender, water and sewer and public works, and this is the water and sewer side to it. And council has seen the public works side of it, but as we are looking to purchase vehicles from both the city corporation side and the water and sewer corporation side, we need that information to flow through to council. And there'll be an update for council, and just to tie these 3 in with the other 13. And it'll be coming in the future because it was asked at council for a review of the tender process at that time. And this is just to have these 3 go forward with those 13. So the total 16 can be managed in the same manner. And so there was a tender put out again, jointly Water and Sewer, Public Works. There were 3 responses, and only one of them was qualified as a response because they didn't recognize the addendums that were also issued.
Oh, okay, Councillor Bernard, go ahead.
I'm just wondering, and I know there's 2 separate corporations here, water and sewer and public, city government. But do all these vehicles not go through the fleet manager? And I'm just wondering, just to stop confusion and so on, we've got all these different trucks and different resolutions coming. To me, if we're getting 16 trucks, get 16 trucks. 3 of them are paid out of water and sewer, and the other 13 are paid out of public works, but I don't think we need to come with 3 and 4 resolutions. It just makes it a lot easier, because the fleet manager's looking after it. It's a city of Charlottetown all in one. Because this has been before us before, and I guess we've got legal opinion, and I'm okay to move it ahead. So.
The 16?
Yeah. Although this is only, you're only asking for the 3 here. That's why I say
Richard, respond to that.
Sure, and appreciate it, and we will look for an opportunity to make those changes in the future. One of it was kind of bringing everything through different committees, so Water and Sewer Committee having an opportunity to review the tender, and Public Works Committee reviewing the tender, and just timing on everything. But point well taken that we should be looking at streamlining all of our procurement processes into the future. So I appreciate the comment. We will work to do things better in the future.
Thanks, Richard.
Mr. Chair, just to follow up on that, go ahead.
I was just going to ask if I could, appropriate. I know at the last, council meeting, this whole thing come up in terms of the vehicle, starting with 3 with public work or with water and sewer, and then the 13 with public works, and then at our last council meeting, there was a recommendation there or consideration there that it be awarded to tender be awarded for the 16, and then there was discussion at council wanting to know to get a second look at a legal opinion on that, and I'm just wondering if staff can share, was there any feedback on that opinion, on that legal opinion? Regards the, is it?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we did reach out for a legal review, and the information come back, which is in support of staff and the Public Works Committee and Finance's recommendation to award the bid to the compliant bidder. And just to recognize the foresight of Public Works and Water and Sewer Utilities, foresight in doing the joint procurement. They recognize that they were both buying some of the same thing and might get a little better price by going together on it. So it was with good intention and good practice that they brought that together. So hats off to them for doing it.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Chair,
Mayor Brown?
I'm glad that Mr. McEwen's here, because this started at water and wastewater, when we were looking at 1 vehicle, and then it went to 3 vehicles, then it went to 16. And I received a couple of calls from last week's meeting on the confusion that took place here in this chamber. And my response was that, okay, there's a lot of information going back and forth. So, Mr. McEwen, you remember we went for 1, and the manager for water and wastewater came back for a price for 3, and we said, whoa, we just said 1. Do you recall that?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. So the Water and Sewer Utility was looking to purchase vehicles, and we had previously issued, the city corporation had issued a tender for the purchase of a half-ton vehicle that matched what the Water and Sewer Corporation was looking for. I believe that one was a Parks and Rec. and the water and sewer staff recommendation, because we'd reached out to that dealer and they had agreed to sell additional vehicles to the utility, maintaining that price from the previous tender, but council made the decision that they didn't want to go with that procurement process and asked us to re-tender. So the water and sewer utility re-tendered for 3 vehicles. Public Works recognized that we had that tender out and the capital budget had been passed where we were looking to purchase an additional 13 vehicles. So both parties thought that it would be in the city's best interest to increase the number of vehicles in that tender, looking to reduce the price per vehicle, put out an addendum to search for 16 vehicles.
So, Mr. Chair, for that first vehicle that went through the utility, water and wastewater, it wasn't this bidder that we have in front of us, 62,000. It was another bidder that's in that list that had a lower price. And that's when the manager of water and wastewater said, look, let's buy 3. Okay? And again, the decision was made at water and sewer. Wait now, you can't do that. You have to go back through the process. So you went back through the process, and speaking to one of the bidders called me, who was disqualified, and said, we got a notice that the date was changed. There was an extension given for 4 days, and they added 13 more vehicles. Now, to get those prices in 4 days in the environment that dealers are working in today is pretty hard to do. Because one day tariffs are on, one day tariffs are off. One day tariffs are on parts, one day tariffs are off parts. So it's a very, very, a very fluid type of market. So to make that change or to get those bids was going to be difficult in those 4 days. However, when we go through the addendums, or through the price sheet here, the tender bid price, 2 were disqualified, and I asked why. And the answer was that they did not acknowledge the addendums. So, Curious George, I phoned provincial procurement, and I asked, because I know from my experience with the province, is that you don't acknowledge a addendum. That's your loss if there's more required in that tender. They said, no, you don't have to acknowledge, because there is one portal they use, it's Merck's, and Merck's is a bidding platform. On that bidding platform, they don't put out addendums. That's up to the vendor to find out about those addendums. So that's where the confusion came from, and that's why I was asking for a better process, streamlined process, which will come about in the form of a procurement bylaw. It will spell it out, right? So, again, just to clarify, this information that was exchanged between the bureaucracy and elected officials, it just wasn't, I don't think it was synchronized. I think there was confusion, and that confusion came out on the floor here when we discussed it and deferred it to get a legal opinion. So, going forward, as Councillor Bernard recommended, if we have to cross paths, cross the road to be working with our utility or the utility working with our city government, that should be a seamless process, because, like, provinces are trying to cut back on their trade barriers. Like, if a province can do it, for heaven's sakes, hopefully 2 corporations in one city can do it seamlessly. All you have to do, we get 2 accountants here, you just have to account it in the books. As long as it's accounted in the books of where it belongs, the expense, we're fine. There's nothing fraudulent about that, nothing illegal. So going forward, and again, this is not the first time we ran into this. It happened with the police vehicles. Like, we keep coming back to this stuff, guys. I think we can find a path forward that will make it much easier for the bidders so that they can get some assurance out of, did we get the tender? Did we not get the tender? So after today, I'd like to just put by accepting the $62,350 for those 3 vehicles for water and wastewater, by passing this, we're also accepting the price for the 13 vehicles for City Corp. Because that's the price that is for all of them, correct?
Yep.
Yeah. So let's make sure that on Tuesday, we can clarify this and get this tender signed, sealed, and delivered. Thank you.
Councillor Bernard.
Yeah, and I just want to clarify a couple of things, to me, and somebody clarify if I'm wrong, but, so when this first came from Water and Utility, you are right, it was one vehicle. The price, they were pretty happy with the price. So they were wanting to get 2 more vehicles, same criteria. No different criteria, the same trucks. So our procurement rules have always allowed us to do that because they're already the lowest bidder. If the truck's the same criteria, hasn't changed, then they can buy 2 more. So, so it is allowed. I think you said it wasn't allowed or wrong process, but it is allowed. It was decided to go to back to tender again because now there was 3 trucks, may even get a better price. So then when it went back to tender, then Public Works said, well, let's go put our 13 in to get the best price for bulk purchases. So when it come back, the price is there, and there's 2 disqualified, which leaves 1 bidder, which is why legally they ruled and said, okay, you got to offer that bid. But I think from day one, this is brought on ourselves. We could have just said, go with the 3 trucks. That's the same price, and that would have been done. And then Public Works would have been ordering their 13 trucks. So I think, I don't think anything was done wrong. I think the decision was made. We could have went with the 3 right off the bat. I think the majority of council said, send it out to retender.
So just quick
But I
response.
just want to say, we weren't doing anything wrong. We could have went with the 3 trucks.
Quick response, Mr. Chair, is that this whole issue goes back to the J. Frank Macaulay Park issue about extending the tender. The policy's there, but if you got a procurement bylaw in place, the rules of engagement hopefully will be clearer. That's what we need to do. I keep pressing that point. And as for going back, when you are a bidder, a vendor, if you're bidding on 1 and then you find out, uh-oh, it's for 3, I didn't know that. I think it's in terms of process, from the city's perspective, I think the process has to be fair and equitable. So if you bid for 1, then you bid for 1. But if it goes up to 3, that should have been in the original tender. I'm an advocate of fairness when we tender anything. Policy can say whatever it wants to.
And I understand that. I think what I'm saying is, and we've done it lots of times before, if you put out for a truck and you have the lowest tender, and then you decide you want to get 2 more of the same truck with the criteria hasn't changed, then it should still come in the lowest tender. And that's why they allow us to do that. In this case, we chose not to, which helped get us into this mess. So, but I just want to clarify that we weren't doing anything wrong by going with 3 if they wanted to. If the criteria of a different truck had changed, or a 4-door instead of a 2-door or what have you, the criteria changed, then yeah, that would have to go back to resale. But I think these were all identical trucks.
So again, not to prolong this, the province, I'm sure that Mr. Pino and Mr. Jenkins knows it very clear that they go out for standing orders. They go out for 1, they go out for a standing order for trucks, right? And that standing order is open for 12 months. So they can buy 1 truck, they can buy 5 trucks. That's, again, these are let's fix up the process by, again, providing a procurement bylaw that will allow clear understanding of the bidding process. I think it's easier just to go with a standing order for 12 months. And I asked Mr. McEwen about this 16 trucks. I said, Mr. McEwen, is it for 12 months? Well, it's for 24, 25. It should be clear. This price, if we have to order more, is for 1 year, 12 months. That's what I'd like to see in the resolution.
Thank you. Any further comment? Or Dan, did you or Lane want to CFO Dan?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think it would be really good for the corporation if we can build in some flexibility to the ability to double up or piggyback on tenders that we run or to run standing offers. There's, as we're finding with most of our procurement, most of the issues kind of have a double edge. So where it would be nice for us to have the flexibility to have a fixed price for a 12-month period for pickup trucks. Sometimes the service provider has to build in some protection there so that if his cost goes up on the product, that either he has the option to be able to not have to supply that truck, that in 5 months' time from when he did his pricing, the tariff come in and the price went up by 25%. So it is, something that we would like to have that flexibility. The mechanics of how that works can sometimes be fairly complicated. So it quite often comes down to, best judgment at the time. And I think that's what the utility was trying to do with their, trying to piggyback on the existing truck. At the time, there was discussion of tariffs, and we were concerned about that. So that was part of the basis for coming back at that time. But it certainly to take your point that it would be nice to build in as much as possible where we can that flexibility to not have to go through a separate procurement process, but piggyback on ones that we've already done or ones that other municipalities or governments have done.
All right, thank you. Just, if that concludes that piece for now, just before we go to,
I'll move it to move ahead to council.
yeah, go ahead, or
I'll move the resolution and go to council.
seconder? Seconder from Mayor Brown, thank you. Before I come to, which will now, go back to 6A on the grants, before I come to that, go to 7, is there anything for introduction of new business? Not seeing anything? Okay, so we'll consider that have been done. So we'll go back, and I don't know if anybody can tell us if Deputy Mayor Tamara, are you aware if Deputy Mayor, probably she's not, she was talking 1 o'clock, so we're well before that, so. She has expressed some opinion on our grant, the information that we'll be discussing, having before us, so perhaps before we're done with this, we'll get started. And if she joins us before we're done, she can share her thoughts and comments on the grant, 25-26 grant process. Thank you. Having said that, maybe turn it to you, perhaps Lane, to start on the what we have before us in terms of grants for 25-26. Thank you.
Sure. Tamara, if you just want to go to the title page on that report. Yes.
On which report?
Just go back to the first page of the report there. Yep, one more. And the next one. That's great. Just leave it there for now. Thank you. Thank you, Chair. So, the grant report that's provided as part of your package contains 2 pieces. One is with respect to community grant applications that are brought before the Finance Committee and Council at this time of year every year. So we've provided a listing of those. We've provided some of our analysis and our review of the applications that were submitted from those organizations. So we're bringing that forward for Finance Committee review, feedback, and then ultimately to Council for approval. The second piece is there's a summary sheet contained within your package as well that has all of the other operating grants that are contained within the 25-26 operating budget. And as part of the deliberations, as we went through the budget process back on March 24th, there was discussion amongst council about this point in time that we should take a look at our grants for the city to consider what the approach should be for grants going forward in terms of the level of support that we provide to different organizations, how they contribute to the city's overall strategic plan and moving forward. So what we did was we provided a listing of all of those grants across various departments in your package. And those are brought forward for review as well. So we've identified how those grants have been allocated as part of the financial plan and how they've been historically accounted for as part of the 24-25 budget. And I'll leave it to obviously there's a lot of information here, as you can appreciate. And we had some issues with organizing some of the project sheets within the package, and I apologize for that. So the order of the sheets may not necessarily align with the master summary document, but the tabs along the side of your file are in order, and you can click on them relatively quickly. So I'll leave it to the committee in terms of how you want to review these. If you want to take a look at the community grants specifically as a first step, but again, I'll leave that to the committee to decide the approach.
Councillor Bernard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Lane. So I know when we last talked, and it looks like we're going down that road, which is great. I think a lot of the grants that have already been approved in the budget, council will go over for if there's any changes they want to make for the 26-27 for next year. Correct? Not the community grants, but the other grants, whether it's economic development or some other ones, because it's already in the budget. So that was always my interpretation. So outside of the community grants, when we look at some of the other ones, it's basically council can decide if that's something you want to continue with next year or there's something you might want to pull back on. So at least we have time. If there is something they want to pull back on, we have time to be able to get to the person that it affects. On the community grants, I always thought that council was going to go over the community grants. There was $400,000 allocated. There's, I think, $479,000 ask. I didn't know that you guys were going to make recommendations on what was to be cut or not. I thought council was going to do that. And I know there are only recommendations. Not a lot of changes, but one question I have is, and I don't know if you guys have the history of this, I don't know where it come back, the Royalty Center House of Sport, to drop that $40,000. Where does that recommendation come back and what's it based on? Because I don't know if you guys know the history of how that figure come up with and why it's been at the same figure every year. So where did first of all, where did the recommendation come from and what was the basis for the recommendation?
And just before you answer that, Blaine, just to clarify for direction and focus, so can we keep this discussion exclusively to the community grant piece for now, and then address the rest of the grant piece, i.e. recommendation for 26-27 separate? So we'll just, right now the focus is on the community grants that we have here in front of us and get that settled. Is that fine with the committee?
That's what I thought we were going to be doing. Yeah, it's just basic community grant conversation.
Mayor Brown? Or Councillor Bernard, you good? Okay.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for him to answer that.
Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me, right. On the House of Sport royalty, yeah, sorry.
So, Chair, through to Councillor Bernard. So, through the matrix, first of all, it was myself and my staff that reviewed the applications that came in, and with the associated detail that we provided in the package, we look at things in terms of if the funding requirement that they're requesting is operational. The intent, to my understanding, of community grants is for specific projects, so that the organization is not relying on funding to cover operations that it's where it could be a long-term funding requirement that they're looking for when the city's not prepared to do that, as these are one-time, once-a-year grants provided. So we factored that into the scoring, as well as if there was any other direct benefits to the city as a result of the grant. So we reviewed the applications, and if there was, depending on the information that we could pull from the applications, that's how we derived our score.
Yeah, so when I read your sheet that you put in explaining each one, yeah, I don't think you have the history. So basically where that came from, and I don't have all the formula how it worked out, but I do recall when this came to council, and it's about 10 years ago, and it had to do with subsidy for kids' sports. So we do, as you know, the soccer subsidy, the hockey subsidy, the baseball, what have you. So these were city residents that were doing sport out of this building, like the gymnastics, the boxing, the taekwondo, those different sports. So that's where they come up with the subsidy. That's where they come up with the figure. So that's why I said I don't know how you just would knock off $40,000, because I think we're going to get every parent in a lot of different sports roaring and screaming at us why their subsidy's cut and the others aren't. So I think the formula from that worked into the sport facilities out of that building, get a break, and they use it towards, I think they use it towards their rental, but I'm not positive on that. But there was a formula that was worked out. But that's where it came from, was a subsidy for the kids doing those sports. So having said that, that's why I'd be a little leery. I wouldn't be in favor of cutting that back to 25,000. I'd be leaving that where it is myself.
Thank you. And to Councillor Bernard's point, Manager Lane, is there any way, I guess, is there any way for us to reach back to get clarity on that in terms of, as you've said, Lane, that the understanding from what you have, the information you have, the finances, that might have been more of an operational piece as opposed to project? Is that something with a little more asking we could get clarity on?
Chair, we can go back and review the information and identify if there's anything additional that we need to get. If that's the direction of the committee, we can.
Yeah, I'm just going on history because I was here when that was done. I don't know they may be able to go back and look at all the records and they'll see it's always been around the same amount. But that's what it was based on when the agreement was made. So having said that, for me, I'd leave it in because I know it's based on the subsidy for the sports the kids play. So,
Mayor Brown, do you comment on that?
Yeah. Again, let's just go back to the budget document, page 61. We do have subsidies and grants for community sports. Swim subsidies, figure skating, pros subsidy, minor hockey, minor baseball and softball, minor basketball, speed skating, minor soccer, ringette, minor football. They amount to $216,400. So Councillor Bernard is saying that these are reaching out to the 60,000 is reaching out to other programs that are not covered in this list. Is that correct?
yeah.
Just to clarify.
Yeah, so Mayor, my recollection was when this came up, and like I say, it was about 10 years ago when this came up. This came through, I'm pretty sure, and I shouldn't name names publicly, but I thought it started with Island Gymnastics, and then it went through as far as they weren't getting subsidies, but other sports were. So that's where the whole conversation started. And then it spread through. So when they come up with this agreement, this was the House of Sport, and it was only towards the square footage that where sports were participating. So that's what it was based on.
CFO Dan.
To Councillor Bernard through the chair. So I just did a little digging into each of these community grants are based on an application from the potential recipient. And you're right, they have provided a breakdown of several dozen organizations that use rooms in the House of Sport. And it's basically $1.50 per square foot of the rooms that they are using. So it's essentially a rental subsidy, I think. And it's everything from the Island Horse Council, Women's Institute, Community Legal Education,
Those ones
home
wouldn't be
and
included
school.
in that. Like community legal wouldn't be included in that.
CLIA,
Yeah, that's right, CLIA.
presume, yeah. So there's quite a list here that are all calculated at $1.50 per square foot. And for those rooms, Hockey PI Truckers Association, Taekwondo, as you say, Marathon, IT Shared Services, which is interesting, that's provincial operation.
Well, the
but
building's
there's
owned by
nothing
the
for-
provincial
yeah.
government.
Sorry, that's a zero, so they didn't calculate anything for there. Yeah, Special Olympics, 2,700. Yeah, so there is a list of.
And it should be the sport, the different sports, yeah.
Yeah. And community legal information is zero rated, so it's on the list, but
And
it's
it
zero.
should be, it's only supposed to be for sports. Okay, thank you.
Sorry, what?
Excuse me, just, I'm getting nodded here. Is Deputy Mayor Yankoff ready to join us, or?
Yeah, she did.
She's here?
I've been here for a little bit. Thank you.
Okay, Deputy Mayor, yeah, just to, on this Sport PI, and you'll have your opportunity, Deputy Mayor, just here in a minute. Just, so on the Sport PEI House of Sport, are we clear?
It's Royalty Center is what it is.
Royalty Center? Are we clear on, okay, all right. And Councillor Bernard is suggesting to, you're suggesting to, you want to see the funding stay where it is?
Well, it should, because that's what it's for, it's based on the sports subsidy.
Put it in.
And Mayor Brown. And Deputy Mayor Yankoff, are you up to speed on this item we're talking on?
Give me a Reader's Digest 15 seconds and then I'll be up to speed. I'm still on the plane, but I'm just trying to open the documents. I've read them last night, but just give me something.
Yeah, basically, we're on the community grants list, and we're talking specifically on the Sport PI Royalty Center grant request. Historically, it's been something that we've always, I guess for the most part, funded. And the grant request this year was for $62,740, and the staff recommendation was $25,000. And Councillor Bernard has shared a little bit of the history on this organization and request, and for his reasons that he can share, he feels that we should be leaving or recommending going with the grant request to the $62,740, and Mayor Brown is in support of that as well.
What did we give them last year?
60.
Okay, well then I would say we go status quo for this year until we have that holistic discussion next year. So I'd say status quo, leave it at whatever we gave them last year, give them the same this year.
I think,
All right, thank you.
I think, Councillor Yankoff, this, I don't know if you heard the conversation, we talked about this. This was based off the sports subsidy when this conversation started 10 years ago. So the figures that are there are based off the subsidy for the sports of the building, whether it be gymnastics or taekwondo or boxing or whatever those sports are. And I assume, if there's a small increase there, that I'm assuming the other sport subsidies we gave, there must have been an increase too.
So just to, maybe I'll just close on this to say, Deputy Mayor, again, if you missed the first part of the conversation, there was some clarity. Staff recommendation was to something less, and a lot of that had to do, I think, with thinking perhaps there was some of our funding that they received in the past was more perhaps going into an operations piece, which for the most part is not not the most favorable benchmark for us to be using, and asked perhaps Lane if he could maybe confirm with Royalty Center just what our grant funding is basically covering, and a lot of it, I think, should be, or it's understood, is going towards subsidies for the various groups that live within that organization. So it'd just be good to have some clarity around that, I guess.
And you know what, if I could just add, I mean, you know what? If the deputy wanted to leave it at 60,000, the mayor's okay with what they're requesting, I'm okay with either. I mean, we're not talking a lot of money. Leave it at 60 then, that's fine. If you would just want to just recommend the 60,000 instead of 25, that'd be fine. I don't think $2,000 is going to hurt any.
Okay, we fine with that?
And-
That CFO Dan?
Thank you, Chair. And just to clarify for the Deputy Mayor, we based on Councillor Bernard's information there, we did go back and double check, and the funding is to support the rental of the rooms for each sport organization. So we have pretty good clarity on that now.
All right.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. All right, just, is there any more further discussion? Mayor Brown?
Yes, so, Mr. Chair, if we look at request, recommendation, one is 79,000 more than what we did last year, right? If we go with the recommendation, like go down to the bottom figures, right? If we go with the staff recommendation, it's $162,000 more, okay? So,
Which one are you looking at, Phil?
so if you look on page 11,
Page 11?
yeah, on your digital,
Okay, I was on 24. Page 11.
page 11.
Same thing, okay. Yep.
See it?
Same page, same thing.
Yeah, so grant request is $2,479,815. That's with the university request.
Oh, yes.
So the difference between that and last year is $79,300, okay? But the staff recommendation, the difference of 562, 464 minus 400 is 162,000 more, okay? Where are we getting that 162,000 more? Are you just taking it out of the surplus that we had?
Through to the mayor. So if you look at the information contained within the finance budget where these grants are housed, based on my review, the core provision for community grants was 512,000 last
it?
year.
Okay.
And again, that may be a different grouping that incorporated some additional funding over and above what was provisioned of 400,000 for last year. I don't have the full history on it. But in addition to that, we did add, as part of the budget deliberations, we added 50,000 for UPEI for the alumni field lighting project. So 512 was the base that we had in our working papers, adding the 50,000, getting us to the 562,000.
So, Mr. Chair, if I go to last year's budget, 24-25, under other expenses, grants, it has the affordable housing grant, it has Bedford McDonald, which didn't get it because they didn't apply, Blooming House, and it also includes your extraordinary expenses for that too, in this budget document that we had last year. So this is not the same document that we're looking at here. This is actually what we've been working on since March 8th, March 25th, or March 24th. This is the document I've been working on, and then the new one that we received last night. So you're saying we have an additional 112,000 over last year's grants of 400,000? Okay, so that changes the color of the soup.
Yeah, it makes me wonder, so I'm sorry.
No, No, go ahead. Mr. Chair, I defer to Councillor Bernard.
Okay. Yeah, because it's one that qualified. So are we saying there's 400,000 to spend in community grants, or are we saying there's 512,000? Okay, and the 512,
550 if you include the lighting project, or 562 if you include the lighting project.
And again, just back and forth, would that still not affect the budget that we passed on the 25th, or on the 31st? Okay.
so there's 512 to spend, and the total you're saying is 562.
Yeah, 512 plus the extra 50 that we essentially committed to last fiscal year, subject
added
to
to.
budget,
the turf
for the lighting project at the UPI Alumni Field.
Okay. So that includes the unallocated budget of 200,000. Okay, and what do you mean when you say it's unallocated? It's 200,000 in grants unallocated.
I'll let you respond.
So, so basically what we did, the chair through to Councillor Bernard, is we took all of the grant requests that we've received and tallied those up, and then did our review through the matrix and identified what the staff recommendation was and came to a bottom line for that. And if you compared that with the total budget that we have within finance under that category, it's 562. So that's the difference basically. It's the total budget less the staff recommendations on the applications received.
Okay. Okay, no, that's it. I thought I had another question here.
And
Oh,
if
yes,
I,
you did,
if
yeah.
I,
I just found it, yeah. The Queen Elizabeth Hospital Foundation, the 25,000 we know have been given them. They jumped it up to near 40,000. So there's a recommendation there for the 37.5. Would it make sense to keep that as what it always was?
At 25?
Yeah. That takes you down. You're pretty well. That would have you pretty well to 525. Because you have 562 in ass, right? So if you can get this settled down out of here, when you go to recommend it to council, at least it's balanced.
Just,
John?
CFO Dan.
thanks, Chair, through to Councillor Bernard. So just to clarify, in terms of the asks that we have, if we include the lighting project for 50,000 and the $2 million for the Faculty of Medicine, we're at 2.479 million. So if we back out, just for simplicity, the 2 million ask for the Faculty of Medicine, that leaves it at 479 in asks, and we have budget of 512.
Yeah,
Actually, 562, so,
Yeah.
so we have extra budget here, yeah.
Okay, well, 562 is the staff recommendation. That's what I was about to ask. 200,000.
Yeah, so the staff recommendation was for 362, we have budget for 562, yeah.
Just a quick question.
Just use your mic.
Sorry, just a quick question. The UPI aluminum field light project, and you may know this too, whenever we talk, we were going to light the field if they made it a turf field, weren't we? Is that what UPI asked? No?
The initial ask through the chair to Councillor Bernard was for assistance with the lighting aspect of the renovation. There was discussion about turfing the field, but it was all subject to the legacy funding that they were going to get from the Canada Games legacy. So the resolution that came to council and was passed was basically to support the lighting project. There was no condition of it being a turf field eventually. It was just for the lighting project, and it was 50,000 last fiscal year, and then a 50,000 this fiscal
I
year,
remember that
subject to budget.
conversation. I just thought when we were first talking to Bruce, I thought there was talk about a turf field, which made sense to put lights. Because I'm thinking if we light it, but it's still a grass field, you're going to use it for so many hours anyway. But anyway.
My memory, not this has come back, we're talking about here a second time, was that it was very much conditional upon Bruce Donaldson led the charge in this, was if they qualified for the legacy funding from the Canada Games, which they did, and
Okay,
then
maybe
that was the
that's what I was
piece.
thinking. There was a caveat there. Maybe that was it.
That was
Okay.
it.
Perfect.
Mayor Brown?
So if we go with the grant request, 479, because I'm eliminating the 2 million, because that has to be dealt with separately. 479,815. I'm not going to get into the weeds here, but can we just try to replicate what we did in 24, 25 in those initial requests? Like Charlottetown Harbor Authority is 30,000, Seniors Active Living Center is 20. The Boys and Girls Club, we do have, and I know we all know this, there is Boys and Girls Club Building Safer Communities funding. Did we get any information on how that is a much larger subsidy than our 20,000 that we give every year? Is that, or is there some other information we're missing here?
I can speak to that. So the Building Safer Communities was for additional programming that the Boys and Girls Club were going to undertake, and it was based on a funding program that the federal government was fully funding, and we're essentially just funneling the funds from the federal government through to the Boys and Girls Club and also the intercity skills camp. So it is programming, I think, that's being delivered above and beyond for guns and gangs primarily, and not something that is really kind of an ongoing, doesn't relate to what they might have been doing last year, for example.
And the only reason I ask that, Mr. Chair, because if I look at the grant request, the center column, we're basically addressing everything that was asked for $479,000, correct?
Yes.
So the only difference would be, I think, what we talked about regarding, where is it, the sports PEI? No, not sports PEI, where is the 60,000 for?
The Royalty Center. The
Yeah,
fourth one,
that's
fifth one?
still in there. In the grant request, it's 62,
Yeah.
and it's,
Still covered.
are the numbers wrong? Am I correct there? Is that center, if you take away the 2 million, it's 479,000? And we have, what, 512 that were allocated? Well, you know what? You could save that and put that towards some of the other requests that we were looking for in terms
Well,
of staff.
and as our CFO, and I met with our CFO and our manager prior to our meeting, and it's,
You had a meeting?
we can't forget, no, information, we can't forget that,
We should investigate that.
you know, we can't forget that, as our CFO rightly reminded me, you know, don't forget, you know, we had, you know, kind of a deficit from last year that still lives in our, you know, we got to be sensitive to and aware of. You can do a better job of speaking to that than myself. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, no, just speaking that, you know, if we just look at the current year's budget, we're kind of overspent about $5 million, and we're kind of relying on last year's surplus to help buffer that. So there's a couple things we could do with that underspend on the community grants. We can either, you know, we could reoffer for other groups to come in. We could save that and just put it towards our what we hope will be a little surplus this year. Or we could look at some of the new initiatives that we didn't consider and use it towards that. So council has lots of options.
And
Thank you, Mayor
I
Brown.
could just say, Mr. Chair, if you guys want to look, I agree with some of the recommendations, because Councillor McAleer said that we looked at these last year, and I don't recall looking at them. I don't know, Councillor Bernard remembered, but I don't remember. This is the first year we're actually diving into them, like we've done previously. in previous years. You know, if you, like I noticed some that could be modified, but the center column, $479,815. The money's there. And you know, Mr. McCune, as the money's there, spend
Yeah,
it.
and I think last year, last year, Your Worship, we did go over it briefly. There was enough money to cover off. Well, there was enough money to cover our asks, so we just basically went through it briefly, you know, and okayed it because we're in the block.
Mr. Chair, if I could just spring from, not spring, but just jump off where Mr. Pino talked about all the other asks that are in, you know, under economic development, under tourism. I think, you know what, we need to have a broader discussion with our stakeholders, because I am in for partnerships. We need partners in our community. That's the airport, that's the Charlottetown Harbor Authority, it's Holland College, UPI. We need those partners because we can't do it all on our own. And this spreadsheet, you know, it covers 2.5 pages of great organizations that we work with. And I think that, you know, the benefit is greater for us as a partner, as a cooperator, as a collaborator, than just trying to do it all on our own. This morning I attended the Charlottetown Festival, Film Festival launch for their new season coming this fall. You know, they're excited that the city is endorsing the project, but they were one of the late ones. They didn't get their application in for funding, and they're asking if they could submit something. And I said, put it in, go through your arts and cultural advisor, Doug DeMay. And, you know, if there's money through the utility, water and wastewater, we could even look there. But again, that's up to the manager and the director. But no, I want to thank, Mr. Chair, I want to thank Lane, Dan, and I know Richard might have been involved in the directors. I think this is a good report going forward. So if you have to make some modifications based on your recommendation, staff recommendation, you know, it can be modified when we go to council. But 479, 815, it's good for me.
Yeah, just, Deputy, thank you for that, Mayor Brown, and Councillor Ballard, you have your mic on. Just before I go to you, Councillor Bernard, and then the Director, just Deputy Mayor Yankoff, you still with us in this conversation?
Yes, of course, I'm still with you. I'm just making sure I'm on the right page. I'm on page 24, and I'm looking at these grants. And I apologize for coming in Johnny come lately here, but so yeah.
We're on page 11 of the digital copy.
Yeah, Tamara just told me we're on page 24.
Same thing. It's the same information.
Same thing.
So I'm on my digital copy. So, so which page? Page 24 is the City of Charlottetown Community Grant Summary, and that's page 24. Now, if we're on page 11 in my digital copy, then that kind of looks almost the same. So, what page do you want me looking at?
Whichever one you're happy with. Both the same.
How come there's
Whatever
two
makes
in
you
there? And
happy.
I know it doesn't matter, but why are there two? My little pea brain needs to understand that.
Because they knew you'd be on a plane and they wanted to confuse you.
Okay, CFO Dan, you want a recommendation? Go to 11.
If I may, Deputy Mayor and other members of the committee, this is our first run at trying to present an overview of the grants that the city has, and I apologize because it is a little clunky, but we tried to present as much information as we could, so that if you wanted to dig into any one question, the information was there or close by. But we'll try to do a better job at presenting it in a more tidy fashion moving forward. So apologies for the clunkiness of the spreadsheet and so on.
So Chair, if I may, then these are our community grants, but there's a whole other grouping of grants that still have to be reviewed by council, do they not?
Yes, and the Deputy Mayor, the discussion on that, it's suggested, which I support and recommend as well, is to, for 26, 27, the, all other grants that fall outside of community grants be looked at through, I guess, a second look, not the least of which is probably engagement with, some of these groups, and to take a deeper, dive on the support and the partnerships we have there with those various community groups.
Okay, and if I may, just one more follow-up question. So the grants that we're looking at right now in real time, these are things that have already been kind of allocated in our operational budget already, have they not? And then the other ones you're talking about are ones that we have a certain amount of money set aside for us to take and work with. Is that correct?
I'm going to say for yes, I think for most part you're correct on that, but I'll let CFO Dan, I'm not sure, he has his mic on and he can confirm that perhaps for certainty and whatever else he has to say. Thanks. Dan?
Thank you, Chair. Through to Deputy Mayor Yankoff. So in the budget document, because of the request to circle back and look at grants holistically, we made a purposeful effort not to identify any specific nonprofit or grant recipient, other than those ones that we knew that there were existing contractual obligations for, like the Airport Authority, like Kerry and Eastlink, like our tourism accommodation levies. So those were all separately disclosed, but so that we didn't box in council unnecessarily and without authority, pending your review of the individual grants, we left only the budget totals. So there are none of those smaller individual nonprofits listed in the budget document. So those individual amounts weren't approved per se, so that council still had the opportunity to verify or make sure that those are the priorities that council wanted to move forward with. So we're not expecting that there would be any significant variation from what department heads and committees had put forward. But because there was a request to consider them, overall, we did kind of reserve council's right to do that by not indicating the individual nonprofits and how much would be budgeted for each one of those.
Thank you for that. And just so I'm clear, and I apologize for you guys will probably already have all these questions answered already. So the ones that we're looking at right now that are listed and with specific names, like for example, I'll take like the PEI spelling bee. We have a contractual obligation to give them $2,650. We have a contract that we did that. Is that correct?
Through the chair to the deputy mayor, no, we don't have a contract on those. So that the spelling bee is not one that's listed in the budget document. So it wasn't brought to council to consider in the budget document. So what was approved in the budget was $562,000 for community grants, full stop. So that left council with the authority then to go to do a review, like we're doing today, and what will happen on Tuesday at the special meeting in council is to go through and ask questions as Councillor Bernard and his worship have done here, and just make sure that we're doing what council wants to do in terms of getting money out to these folks.
If I could add.
Okay, and yeah, go ahead. Yeah, sorry.
And just if I could add.
Councillor Bernard?
Just so I could add, Lana, just to make it easy. So what we're looking to do is, like the Parks and Rec grants or the Economic Development grants, or a lot of those grants that are already approved in the budget, council will still go through them, and if there's any they don't like or think that we should be discontinuing, it wouldn't be discontinued in this budget cycle. It would be the 26-27 budget cycle. That's why we're concentrating on the community grants, and right now in the community grants, you'll see the line item in the middle, grant request 2.479. So if you take the 2 million out for faculty of medicine, you have 479,000, and apparently there's 562 there. So that's for any change. When I say that's what we're concentrating on, if there was any financial changes in this year's budget, that's where we could do it. Does that make sense?
Gotcha. It does make sense, and thank you for that, Councilor Bernard. But I'm just curious, like, we had all these economic development ones in there that are new asks. I recall seeing Music PEI, Young at Heart, the Guild. So where are those new asks, and where is that discussion piece on all those other ones?
Yeah, that's a good question, because the Guild, yeah, that is a new ask. Where's that?
Thank you, through the chair to Councillors Bernard and Deputy Mayor. So the ask would have come through the department head to committees, but they do still have to be approved by council. So the intention was that those would be up for discussion at Tuesday's meeting by council, in terms of what priorities council as a whole wanted to move forward. Of course, that's where the authority rests in terms of authorizing staff to spend money is with council. So those are, I would argue are still open for review and discussion. Some are easier to pivot from than others, but that's why we tried to provide as much background in terms of what the rationale for the grant was, what kind of, how it originated, how it's grown over time, the feedback that's provided by the department heads in those survey sheets that kind of break down some of the history on each of the individual grants. So hopefully that will inform council to make some well-reasoned decisions on where the money should be spent.
I would note that the majority of those surveys, I read them last night, the majority of those do not include the ask or the recommendation. They're very, very wordy, and you have to go through them with a fine-tooth comb to even find out what is happening. So I'm hoping that by the time this gets to council, it's going to be a lot clearer than it is, because I certainly know today I'm not prepared to make any decisions on those ones until I actually see them a little clearer.
Thanks, and again, apologize for the clunkiness of the format, but we were trying to pull together a lot of information in a relatively short period of time. So the ask and what the budget amount or what the recommendation from staff is in that spreadsheet that is on page. Starts on page 14 of the committee package. So the ask from the organization and what staff is recommending is on that sheet. So you kind of have to cross-reference between the survey and what's on the sheet to come up. But point taken, we'll try to include both of those on the background information so that members of council have that information right in front of them.
Okay.
Thank you for that, because I noticed that's going to be a pretty healthy discussion, because there's a lot of new asks in there, and it was my understanding that that we were going to be taking this holistic look going forward for next year, leaving things almost somewhat status quo for this year till we had that broader discussion. But I see there's a number of new asks in that list. Anyway, I'll stop talking.
Mr. Chair, just on a point of information, guys,
Mayor Brown?
we went through this. A document was sent out to us March 8th on the spreadsheet. Then on March 24th, when we discussed the budget, you sent out the spreadsheets. Are those new asks? Where are these new asks? Are they under fees and memberships, event hosting, economic tourism and development? Where are they? Are they in the document already that we covered at the March 8th and the March 24th meeting?
Through the chair to His Worship, I believe most of them would have been included on the March 8th document, but there would have been some updates from our meeting Yesterday with economic development, one of the events that's still under embargo was not included in the list, and it's been updated. So there has been some
There might
tweaking
be a
going on.
few,
Yeah,
correct?
there might be a few, yeah.
Okay, so again, let me clarify this. When we passed the budget on the 24th, right, in this chamber, we said, look, we'll park the grants, and it's titled Finance Community Grants. Is that correct? Is that what we did?
Well, I guess I'm looking for clarification.
Yeah, that's,
I'm
if I
gonna-
just finished, Council Bernard, that's what we parked. Everything else was approved in the budget, correct? On the 31st of March. And we allowed I thought it was 400, but now there's 562,000 that we left for community grants, that was left in the budget, that we passed by unanimous consent or unanimous vote. But that included everything that's in here, correct? Like, I'm just a little confused. I thought Tuesday was to discuss just the community grants.
Yeah.
Is that your understanding, Councillor
Yeah.
Bernard?
Yeah.
Yes.
If I could
Yes,
speak.
that's what I thought too.
What's that?
If I could speak, and I mean, and I'm glad Alana brought it up. So usually, and maybe the new staff doesn't know, it's usually when you have a new ask, it goes in under the grants. Where it's paid for will then go in under whether it's economic development or Parks and Rec. So we would have that, that's where we're all expecting that under the grant, the community grants. Usually when there's a new ask. So my question now would be, if they're within these other departments, and they have an ask on top of what last year, is the money there to cover it?
It would depend on the department and the, so what they've asked for and what staff has recommended and kind of factored into their budget total are different. So I think if we look at economic development as an example,
Well, for example, arts and culture.
arts and culture.
I see highlight in yellow, 100,000 under unallocated cultural initiatives.
Yeah. So, for example, the Guild last year was at 55,000. They've requested 117, and staff's recommendation was for 62. So I think there is a difference in some cases between what the organizations have asked for and what has come through staff and committees in terms of what was recommended. So
Okay.
you'd have to look at each individual line to see.
So I think where the confusion is so with the budget being passed, all the different departments, we were under the understanding that the grants were passed. So obviously the grants were passed except for the new acts. So I think for clarity for all of council, when we take this to council, there should be a list, and that list should be what was approved last year and what the new ask is, and how much money we have to be able to give.
Thank you, Councillor Bernard. So that information is all contained in that grants listing. So the white sheet starts on page 14. So that information is all on the.
No, I realize that,
Yep.
but it's all over the place. If we just got one document, like for example, if there's 15 more asks in here, then put a document together for council to say the Guild, 55,000, requesting 119, recommending 65. And so we're not fishing all over the place. That's what I think Alana is saying. It's just all over the place in different documents. So, and then we'll know what the ask is and how much money we have to deal with. I think that's what's going to be hard to define here. Like, I'm looking at this document under arts and culture, and I'm seeing 705,869, and beside that 605,869. So when I go up, I see operating budget allocation, I see staff recommendation. But it doesn't really tell me a whole lot. I just think it'd be a lot better if it was in one page, very similar to your community grants. Just have that one page.
Okay.
What was asked and what they're asking now. And then at the bottom, you'll have how much we have to expend and what the total ask is.
Okay.
I just think it'd be easier for everybody.
Sure. Yeah. We can certainly, as I said, do better in terms of the presentation next time through.
I didn't want to say that, but
But again, Mr. Chair, again, when we passed the budget on the 24th as a council and then did the official vote on it on the 31st, all we had to do was just park the community grants. On page 11, page 24, they're listed. And we've decided to go with the grant request. That's it. That's what we're bringing that back to council. So now are we bringing back everything that's new on another sheet? Is that what's being asked? Well, how many new requests are there? Like, I didn't think this is, like, we're complicating this budget process, guys. This is taking a lot of time from staff to, okay, now those new asks, they can be part of the 26, 27, or as we go throughout the year. Like, let's just get this through. Let's just get this checked off. I want to get this box checked off. Like, you know what's going to happen? We're going to have another special meeting, okay? And then staff's going to have to go back and formulate all the data. Then we'll have another 100-page document going. Let's just deal with what we were asked to do. Community grant summary, page 11, page 24. Are we going with the grant request? Is that what we're going with? We agreed to that? $479,815?
I think that's committee's recommendation, as I understand it.
So just on that point, on the community grant piece, I'm hearing, and then the support of the committee is on the grant request, is that we go with the 479, the 2 million's out of there on the UPI thing. We're going with the 479, 815, and that's Councillor Bernard, Councillor Yankoff, in the same page.
I'm just flipping through it here, and I'm looking at all the unallocated budgets, so I'm assuming that's the budget that we're talking about. That would be looking under these other grants, what you have highlighted as unallocated, and it looks like it's approximately 116,000.
Make that a separate document. Let's get this through, guys. Come on. I want to get this out the door. This is about cutting ribbons and cutting checks. That's it. Done.
Yeah, it's just that we have to
Done.
know where we're going. I mean, the community grants, I get it,
Yeah.
but, so this other one, what are we doing?
And that could be first stage of this review of all the other grants, agreements we have. People are waiting for this to happen.
I know.
I don't want to get in Tuesday night, can't make a decision, so we'll have to come back Thursday night, Friday, well, they won't be Friday night, because Friday night's off. But let's,
Okay, so we're in agreement on the 479 in terms of the grant requests, correct?
Yeah.
And then and then what's the recommendation on the balance?
no, what Councilor Bernard is saying, and I want the deputy mayor to get in on this too, is that those new requests, that'll come in a separate document as we go through this agreements, grants, everything else, correct? Let's just get these, I want to get this out the door. People, get that done. That's for Tuesday night.
But, yeah, but the other ones have to be done too, because they're waiting for their money too. These other, under the different departments.
Oh, but that's already passed. Correct?
So my understanding is what council passed was the totals for each category. And then the council wanted to come back and circle back and just have a look at them overall before they approved individual amounts. So I believe the CAO's understanding, if I can speak for her in her absence, is that council wanted to have a look at those to see if there might be some room that they might be able to circle back and look at some of the new initiatives or just make sure that they were kind of consistent with their priorities. So I do believe, I understand, I hear both of your suggestion that we kind of have approved all of that, and we may not vary at all from it, but I do think there are some other members of council that may feel that they want to have a second look at them just to make sure that, to understand where we're spending the money. So I believe that there would be that expectation to have a general discussion about
This
it on
list?
Tuesday.
This list and this list. That's what they want to look at. Guys, you might as well have a special meeting just on this. There is no way that we're going to get through that on Tuesday night. No way. Because look, Councilor Bernard, look what we have. We
No, I
have
think if
heritage
I-
grants, we have event hosting grants. Like, I know when we passed the budget, this was in the budget. These items were in the budget.
Yeah, I think my interpretation, and I think the route we should go, Mr. Chair, is just what we said was all the grants that are already approved in the budget that are going to impact the budget.
We're done.
There can be discussion on it if people want to move it, make changes for the next budget cycle, 26, 27. Basically, we're looking at the community grants.
That's it.
And, but I think there might be, like I know Alana brought up about the guild. I mean, there may be some of those asks that you want to have on a separate sheet. Is the council okay with this or no? Yes or no? Just to get that out of the way, then we're done.
So first
If
item,
I may,
go ahead.
if I may, what you're all saying is absolutely correct, Your Worship, Councillor Bernard. What I think that if we go by what we did last year, you're right. The community grants we just looked at, the 479,000, whatever that amount was, minus the 2 million for the medical center. You're right. Those are done. But then we look at these other ones, and we've allocated a certain amount of money for that. But last year, then we went through those as council because, for example, like you have let me just look here. ACT. So ACT got $2,400 last year. This year they asked for 4,000, and staff have decided 1,600. Where the heck does that number come from? Or the guild asked for, they normally get 55. They asked for 117. The staff have said 62. So I understand all the status quo amounts that are probably automatic, but it's all these new amounts that we need to understand. Why are these community groups either not getting what they asked for, or getting less, or getting more?
Well, if that's what we want to do, then we better find more money. That's what we'll have to do. Or less, unless we'll have to cut some that we already thought were passed, or were not passed, but approved when we voted on the budget on March 31st. So I think for Tuesday night, it's the grants. We have to have another, I think finance has to go through the other parts of what the deputy's talking about and then go back to council with a separate request laid out that will address some of these concerns that were already brought up.
Well, from what I'm seeing here, under community grants, there's $480,000, which still leaves you $80,000 left. And I guess what we don't know, what I'm having trouble finding it is, under the different departments of new asks, to pull that out to see, because I have no idea how much money we have to put towards any new asks. If there's none, then there's no conversation.
I think Mr. Jenkins or Mr. Pino, we got 512, was it, that we put aside?
562.
562.
And
Take
480 from that, so you got
Take
$80,000.
479 from 562, that's what you got. I think 61K, right?
But what about under the other departments like Parks and Rec and Arts and Culture and these other departments that I, like you, thought they were all approved?
Yeah, well, they are. The only thing that wasn't approved was the community grants. I thought it was 400,000 that we said we had to allocate, but now it's 562.
So I guess for me, it would be easier if you just put those other grants. We have our list for community grants to go over. There can't be a whole lot of them in these other departments. So have a listing, the same thing, the same way you do the community grants. The Guild, 55,000, here's the ask, here's a recommendation. There can't be a lot of them, guys. We're already dealing with most of them in community grants. Would there be 5 of them?
Through the chair to Councillor Bernard, I think if you go through the list, there's quite a bit more than five. Perhaps that would vary from what the ask was to what the recommendation from staff and what got included in the total for that bucket, if you will. So I do think there's, you'd have to look through that 2.5 page list to really get a sense.
So can you guys pull out of that what they got last year, what the new ask is, and how much money we have to deal with?
So I believe that information is all on those 3 pages that you've been provided with, so.
Yeah, well, you have to be a New York lawyer to figure it out, because it's all over the place. I'm looking to have everything in one page.
Okay, we'll try to,
Ask, this is what they're requesting, here's what money you have.
okay.
Because it's all over the place in here, so.
Perhaps after the meeting, we could get
And
together.
Yeah, and just,
But
as if I
in,
could use an example, like.
Excuse me if I
this-
could, in
this just
fairness,
I could use-
go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
No, Chair, I didn't mean to cut you off. I'll go when you tell me.
Yeah, no, in fairness to the staff, Dan, you did, you did make the comment earlier that, this is kind of the first pass at doing a second look at this, not only the community grants, but the whole grant, the whole grant piece. So if, and how it's put together here is, perhaps can be refined, and if it's possible to put some numbers together on what Councillor Bernard is referencing, I do agree. I think that would be helpful. I don't know if there's window of time allows for, realize it probably can be done, but if the window with what we're trying to get to council is possible, perhaps you can give me your thoughts on that.
Thank you, Chair. What I would suggest is that perhaps Councillor Bernard and Lane and I could get together for a couple of minutes after the meeting, and we could just maybe see how you'd like it presented. Happy to do that. Okay. In terms of getting information together for council on Tuesday, today is Thursday, the meetings on Tuesday and Friday and Monday are holidays, so the council package is going out tonight by 5 o'clock. So not a lot of opportunity to update the council package, but we will try to provide some supplemental information based on how Councillor Bernard would like it presented, and bring that forward.
Mr. Chair, I just want to defer to Deputy Mayor first, because I'll follow up.
Sure.
Deputy Mayor?
Yep, thank you. And there aren't too many, but there are enough that give me pause. And that would be, this town is small. They got 10 last year. This year they asked for 15. And staff is recommending 14. What's the rationale of the 1,000 less? Or that there's many like that. And I can't find anywhere in our documentation, because, as Councillor Bernard said, you need a Philadelphia lawyer to figure it out. What's the rationale? Like the guild is in a heck of a mess this year, trying to rebuild. They asked for 117 instead of 55, and so they asked for 62 more. So instead of getting 117, staff have recommended 95. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I just don't see any. There's just no mathematical rationale of how you've come up with these numbers. That's what I want to know.
So, Mr. Chair, if I can just jump in, it's not a reduction, it's an increase. We can't fulfill every request. That's always been the practice. Councillor Bernard and I sat around finance last term and this term, and I was on finance when I was on council. I don't know if there is a Rubik's Cube that will say, here's why it went down 1,000. My objective for Tuesday night, if we don't want to do it, let's park this until another separate meeting, and then we can go through all the grants, all the questions we have about money going to arts and culture, all the other areas, because I don't think it's fair that we can ask staff, okay, give us, take a look at all these other requests and come back with a report for Tuesday. I don't think it's possible. It's just not logistically possible. And again, to justify why it's $1,000 less or $1,000 more. As long as the grant is still there, and if it meets, where they're going to, like, I know I've applied for grants when I was on an organization. You always ask high and hope you get that, but if you don't, you're glad to get something. So let's just, Mr. Chair, I don't, again, I agree with Mr. Jenkins and Mr. Pino. We can't ask staff now to just pivot right over to, coming up with another list. Again, I thought it was just the community grants. That's all I thought it was. And everything else that we can deal with subsequently at other finance committee meetings. And I'd like to have that discussion at future finance committee meetings. But for Tuesday night, I want to get these grants, community grants, out the door because they are calling.
So with that, I certainly support the recommendation that we deal with the community grants. That's the piece that definitely goes to council on Tuesday. And for the rest of it, that it does get deferred, and either if it's a separate session or in whatever that may be or look like, will get dealt with in due time with support of staff consultation and the committee and ultimately council. CFO Dan?
If I may, I just want to throw up a word of caution. If there are individual grants, as the deputy mayor has highlighted a couple that are particularly concerning, time is of the essence, as was brought to my attention by Laurel in ACTEV, that a lot of these people are trying to hire staff for the summer, get budgets agreed, and I think it would be great if we could possibly deal with them sooner than later. If we kick this down the road another month, it may be difficult for some of those folks to know where they stand. So, as cumbersome as it may be, we'll try to highlight where the variances are, where the touch points might be. If any of the other members of the committee have some of the individual grants that they're particularly concerned about, we can try to flush out the discussion on those. But I would encourage committee and council to try to flush out the discussion on any of these that are particularly concerning for you sooner than later, because I know, and only because Laurel raised the flag to me, that some of these folks are waiting on confirmation. So.
Thank you, Councilor Bernard.
Yeah, and we can have a quick discussion after. Like, what I'm getting at is, of these forms, like a lot of these are already approved. So I would take all them out. So the ones that are, for example, when you're looking at Gold Cup Parade, 15,000, 15,000, 15,000 across the board. Well, that's already part of our budget that's been approved. Event negotiation, request for, event is under embargo, request was for 100,000. Well, that's under embargo, we can't make the announcement, we've agreed to it, it's $100,000, so those are things I think that we don't need to have in that ask list. If it's already been approved, it's already done, just the ones that, if there's money that we want to give them, they have another ask, and then what's the recommendation to give them?
Yes, certainly council's discretion. Just on that event TBA, I think the ask was for 100,000 and the staff recommendation is for 50. So it would be one of those that would fall into, there is a fairly significant variance. So we're happy to bring back as much or as little information as you would like. So really looking for direction.
Mayor Brown.
I just have one final question after his worship.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Deputy.
Okay, thank you. And Chair, then I just have one question, and that is on page 14, just so I'm clear, we talked about the community grants. So what do we call this list of grants? Are they just the arts and culture grants? And if that's the case, staff is recommending $605,869 of arts and culture grants. Have we already approved that in our operational budget? Because I didn't think we did. And if we did, that's great. I'll stop talking.
Okay, thank you. And CFO Dan?
Thank you, through the deputy mayor. So what we did approve in the budget was the total of 605,869. So that amount is in the budget. There was no disclosure in terms of any of those individual breakouts, other than perhaps the Confederation Center of the Arts grant in lieu, because it is by agreement.
Yeah, I think where the confusion has come for everybody is in the past, any new ask was in that list for all of council to review, even if they had it before and there was a new ask. So the Guild would have been listed under the community grants, and all these other ones would have been listed as new asks, so everybody sees what they are. Once those decisions are made, then it'll be slotted into what department the budgets come out of. So I think that's why everybody's kind of like, what's going on? So I think that's why we're kind of looking at everything that one list. So.
Okay, thank you.
Just quickly, Mr. Chair, staying on page
Mayor Brown?
Staying on page 14. Are we on 14 there, Lane? Yeah, where it says, it starts off with BIS 200-year anniversary celebrations. Is that correct? Is that the one? Okay. So if I go down to the 25-26 operating budget allocation, it's 614,000. Is that correct, Mr. Pino? Mr. Jenkins, correct? Okay. So what was asked and what was granted, big difference? I'm going to ask the question. I don't see much of a difference.
So the asks were for 485,000.
Yeah?
There is a $50,000 after-budget event reserve.
Yeah.
That's kind of a city piece, and then there's also 110,000 in there for city hosting expenses, and they're articulated on that sheet. There's score hosting services for 5,000, music programming for 20,000.
Yeah.
Up to 110, Wintertide programming for 60K, and community events and staff meals for 25K. So,
But again, Mr. Jenkins, what
Yep.
was asked, requested, what was granted is equal. What's the difference? They asked 485, we gave 614. Correct? That's what's in the budget. So I just want to go down. So if you go down to what was asked under fees and memberships, they were asked 287, we approved 287. Like, what am I missing here?
yeah, I would concur, Your Worship. I think for that section of the grants, most of those requests tie into what staff recommended. There are other areas where it doesn't align quite so closely.
Right? So let's go up to page 13, just quickly. I wouldn't worry about boys and girls, that's funding from federal funding, so let's leave that alone. Sustainability, what was asked? 81,000. What was granted? 81,000. Okay? Go to planning and heritage, what was asked? 70,000. We gave them 60,000. And I think that's based on the grant requests that were asked last year, and they didn't come into the full value, so you dropped it down. So I just went over 3 categories. Okay, let's go to the Guild, and it starts by arts and culture. What was asked? 1,935,000. Is that right? That was asked. Am I wrong there? Oh, sorry. 695. No, that was what was budgeted the year before. Okay, what was asked was 692,000. Correct? What did we put in the budget? 705,000. Correct? Yeah, like, guys, there's some that may be off 1,000 or 2,000, but did we fulfill what we were asked? Yes.
So the money's there.
Like, all I'm saying is that the grants, the community grants, we didn't settle on that. Today, you guys gave us a center column that said, here's what the requests are, here's our recommendation. There's a difference, we went with the center one, correct?
Yeah,
Like,
I totally agree. We have budget approved on March 31st to cover all of staff's recommendations here
Everything.
in terms of asks. I think what staff was asked, though, was to bring back a report which gave a higher level overview, so the council had an opportunity to review them and just confirm that they were on board with how the money was going to get spent. So-
And Councilor Bernard, I just want to finish up quick because I know you have to go, but if you go to Parks Recreation, AS 24.8, geez, we gave them 24,995.
So it's back to where we were at the start. Everything's been approved.
That's
Well, that's good.
that's my understanding. Like, if we have to float around a little bit because we didn't give enough, then that comes back to this committee and say, okay, let's amend it. Can we find some more money? Let's go to water and wastewater because they have some money over there.
Okay, think we maybe kind of came full circle, I think, have we? Sounds like to me. Have we? Yeah. Okay, all right, motion, okay, I did interrupt.
I want to move the grants, community grants onto council.
Okay, motion by Mayor Brown, seconded by Councilor Bernard. Deputy Mayor Lankoff, you in favor?
Sure.
Hello? Deputy Mayor?
Yep, move them on to council. Yep.
Okay, thank you. All right, okay, all right, and number 8, motion for adjournment.
Moved.
Mayor Brown, seconded Councilor Bernard, thank you.
See you in a few hours,
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
See you soon, your worship.
Thank you, buddy.